I welcome Dr. Somnath. Uh, my first job, I know since my first job when I in 1995 when I joined GEC. At that time, I was just a research assistant. At that time, Dr. Somnath was a scientist at GEC, and we had that long interaction. Since then, I know him. He's a PhD in wetland from JNU. He has also got certificates from Harvard University in environmental economics, and he has worked with several institutes. He has a key role in establishing environmental and ecology schools at Nalanda. It's a very soft corner for all of us. Nalanda University. It represents our rich past. So feel proud get associated with such a scientist who has been doing such good work for our nation, not only ecology but nation as a whole. Make us proud. He's a very humble person, doing a lot of great job, but never, appraised himself. Very soft spoken. Nature has to be dealt very softly. So whenever I hear him, I get that feel that he's a person who actually inculcated nature in himself, the softness of that nature. So it's a great honor to get associated and be contact with him. Today we have got opportunity to listen him. He's done PhD in wetland. Lakes are almost like they are a type of wetlands. So many things are associated with lakes. So I think we will have a good time with this 1.5 hour to learn lot of things to be learned from him. So I welcome Dr. Somnath. Uh, Please start. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jayendra Lakmapurkar. Thank you, Dr. Sonia Tadani. It's indeed a great pleasure to be here on this platform of the Gujarat Ecology Society, which means a lot to me personally. As Jayendra mentioned, we were initially associated with it uh, in 95 onwards. So it's been a long, long journey. And since then, I'm very glad to see how the society has evolved, how it has contributed to various ecological studies within the state and beyond, in wetland and other parts of the ecosystems. So it's been a wonderful thing to see. And I think the yet another recognition, as Sonia mentioned, I'm sure it's in queue. There are many more on the way. So we'll be looking forward to many such things. So wonderful connecting with the Ecology Society and getting this platform. When I turn to the topic of the day, honestly, I didn't know that there was such a day that existed called the World Lake Day. And I was checking up what is this about. So then I saw that this is a very recent thing that has happened primarily because of Indonesians who took it to the United Nations General Assembly, and it only happened last year in December. So this might be the first World Lake Day celebrations happening. And that too, the day is actually 27th August. So tomorrow is the World Lake Day, and actually to commemorate the first lake conference in Japan in 1984. So wonderful. It's also always a learning opportunity. What all things are happening in the world and how things are working out. So, but as Jandra mentioned, I have been working mostly in India, and my subject has been Indian wetlands and trying to understand Indian water bodies. And of course, all water bodies are connected. So, if you work on wetlands, you have to work on different kinds of water bodies, including the lotic and lentic environment and the coastal environments as well. So, I have had the good fortune to look at all different types of water systems. Uh, and therefore, let me share my screen. Is it visible?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So what I thought was I would discuss about India's waters as living waters. And I would really try to connect the ponds and lakes with a civilizational relevance. And as I do this, I would really like to focus on ponds and not lakes. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Uh, and then discuss some of the decline of ponds and why it matters. And then I think I would also spend a little bit of time to understand what can we do to correct this. So pardon me if I'm not looking entirely into the lakes today, but I would certainly begin with some of the iconic Indian lakes. My first study was on Lake Chilka, which is on the left hand side. Uh, and on the right hand side, of course, everybody can recognize the Dal Lake. So these are some of the iconic Indian lakes, as I would call them. And of course, there are lakes in many cities of India, in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in Karnataka, and of course, the lakes are important. I'm not denying it. And just now, somebody sent me this uh, paper cutting. Uh, is it okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, there's some disturbance somewhere. Okay, so lakes are important as tourism magnets. They are attracting tourism and investments, scenic beauty. Urban planners really love to play along with around lakes because it improves landscapes. It has a great importance in ecotourism and different kinds of tourism activities. And from a regional and policy perspective, there is this whole idea of how do you incorporate lakes within the urban habitations. And as an example, I just put this right now, which has come to one of my social media groups, that there are certain issues which Karnataka is facing related to lakes, and we all know that it's a lake city. But my focus today would be on the ponds of India. And the ponds are neither glamorous nor urban. They are basically showcasing poverty in most places. And if you are a keen observer, you would also see that there is a huge amount of biodiversity strewn in and around the ponds. So if you take a species richness or say a biodiversity in a particular per square area, I think a pond is something which provides you with a fascinating array of biodiversity. And incidentally, in Ecology 101 courses, you often start with a pond ecosystem. And a pond ecosystem really helps you understand how many different layers there are and how different ways uh, plants and animals' life begins to survive in a small pond environment. So, this is something which we had taken for granted for too long. Um, and I'm just going to tell you a couple of things that, yes, it has a huge importance for human beings because ponds provide for daily needs, be it in the form of food, fiber, um, or even as natural buffers against disasters such as droughts and floods. But ponds also support local biodiversity, and much more importantly, I think, uh, provides the basis for groundwater recharge, and which also leads to, which has very profound and significant impacts. Uh, but as we say this, there is also the threats and neglect to ponds, which is essentially the rapid land development happening, alternatives emerging to various kinds of water use. So if you open a tap, you get water. So there's no need to actually fetch water, be it for drinking purposes or any other purposes. And therefore, consequently, there is a neglect. So I think the central point that I want you to take away from this talk is that there is an alarming loss of ponds. And there is an estimate I was checking, trying to find out if there has been any such estimates. And I found one which says that from 2.5 million ponds estimated in 1950s, we have just about 250,000. That means it's just about 10%, which means we have lost 90% of the ponds in about 75 years now. So, as we celebrate India's independence and we think we have made a lot of progress over the last 75 years, it has also been accompanied by a very significant, complete decimation of the ponds that we have seen. Is it important? What happens if we lose the ponds? And this is where I think I'll go back again one by one on some of the critical issues that relate to the ponds. One is of livelihood security and equity, uh, because ponds support uh, various poorer communities, particularly poorer communities in rural areas where mostly the women forage wetland products, a range of wetland products, including fish, mollusks, lotus, water chestnut, makhana, edible greens, all kinds of things. And this provides a range of nutritional options for the poorest communities. So, even when I'm talking about ponds, and if today also there has been some discussion around how to revive and restore some of these pond ecosystems, unfortunately, many of these are again focusing on individual production, be it of makhana or be it of one product somewhere, even fish. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is not about the productivity of uh, one commodity, but of the range of options that are made available to the poorest communities who live in the neighborhood. So it is about nutritional security. It is about women's dignity, particularly in the poorest households. Um, and that is something which is at stake. And because we are talking about the poorest communities, maybe we are not even talking about the voice of, we do not hear the voice of these communities. So that's the community level thing, uh, a very direct thing which we are showing here. Some women in the backyard ponds in eastern India. These are some of the pictures that I had taken long back. uh, but from an environmental point of view, the ponds assume a much greater significance. uh, Ponds recharge groundwater, and up to half of the pond capacity actually enters the aquifers if the bottoms are managed properly before the monsoon. So the ponds not only provide water for recharging the aquifers, particularly the upper aquifers, but it also supports the base flow for small rivers. And this is very significant. If we are losing many of the small rivers today across the country, one of the major reasons is that we are also losing the ponds that supported these rivers. So uh, that's a discussion for another day when we can talk about small rivers. But this is important to remember that the rivers and the ponds are interconnected through the underground aquifers. And this is something that we need to remember always. Uh, Last week, I was in Varanasi, and the name of Varanasi comes from two of the tributaries that flow into the Ganga at that point. One is the Varuna and the other is the Assi. So, what you see here on the top left hand corner picture is actually the Assi River. And I was really shocked when the head of the Department of Civil Engineering in IIT BHU showed me that this is the Assi River. And what you see is perhaps the best understanding of the world where the river is and how the river is. So, and just next to these river systems, you see the water bodies just below that. One is also a very ancient temple pond. There's another pond nearby. Uh, but incredibly, you will also see some soft shell turtles, which are also there in that river or water body or wetland or pond. I don't know what it is. It's a fragmented system, it's a destroyed system, but at the same time, it is sort of gasping for breath. And when we talk about reviving this river, I cannot think of reviving this river on its own just through engineering purposes solutions. It has to encompass all kinds of ecological interventions. And when we think of ecological interventions, we have to think in terms of incorporating a whole range of uh, uh, landscape elements, such as the ponds. And that brings me to the third and the most important point that while we are losing 90% of our ponds in this country, the other thing that we are losing alongside it is the Shraddha of this entire community that is in India, because ponds are integral to various kinds of festivals, prayer cycles, folk songs, and epic tales. So they are considered sacred, they feature in religious tourism, and provide what we call the civilizational memory. So, for the last 8 years, I was in Bihar, in a rural area of Bihar called Rajgir. And what I have seen is a very unique festival there called the Chhat Festival. And the Chhat Festival is quite unique because it does not happen anywhere else in the country. Uh, it is only in Bihar. And second, it is not an organized festival either. It is done at the household level. Third, it does not have a priest, but is actually led by the eldest woman of the household. Fourth, it actually is about reverence to nature. Nature beginning with the sun god, both the setting sun as well as the rising sun. And the reverence to the sun god is made while standing within a water body, a pond typically, in the backyard of a household. These days, of course, many of the diaspora Biharis, they often are seen to be conducting these festivals in a bucket on top of their terraces. But the point that I'm trying to make is that traditionally, this is about the harvest, and the offerings go to nature through nature. And this is something which I thought was very profound and very important to understand. So, having spoken about the dire state of the ponds of India today, the question is, what can we do? And this is a question that I have also been thinking about for a while. And some of the things that we can do is first to understand how India survives. And in the survival of India, how important are ponds? So if you think of when I talk about how India survives, the figure for India is basically there is this India holds 17% of the population of the world. And that is dependent on only about 4% of the renewable water resources. So if you take the entire South Asia, we are talking about a quarter of the global population that is surviving on less than 5% of the global annual renewable water resources. And if that is not incredible, what is? If that is not a very serious way of living, is living on the edge in a way, what is? And I'm trying to make this more clear when I contrast it with Europe and North America, because together, Europe and North America account for approximately 16% of the global population, less than what India is, and hold nearly 42% of the world's total annual renewable water resources, half of it in Europe and half of it in North America. And Europe contributes to about 9.6% of the global population, and North America contributes about 6.3% of global population, both with 21% of the renewable water resources. And here, India is doing the same. The combined population of Europe and North America and more in just about 4% of the water resources. I hope you are able to appreciate the difficulty that what that means. So understanding this itself, I think, is a very first step in trying to appreciate and do something about it. The second thing that I thought we should be doing is this is the reason why we should look at our own people, people who have been thinkers, people who have understood the land, people who have tried to drive some sense into us through their lifelong work. And here I'm talking about a person called Anupam Mishra. Anupam Mishra ji is no longer with us, but he was certainly one of the greatest uh, philosophers, thinkers, and a person who appreciated the importance of ponds in our daily lives in India. And I would suggest, and this is something that I even said in IIT BHU, that maybe it's time for the IITs to begin with a copy of the book Aaj Bhi Khare Hain Talab. The ponds are still relevant. And this is a very cheap book in the way that you can buy it for a very small price on Amazon. Um, and there are many, many editions because it was never copyrighted. And it has been translated into various languages. But because it has never been copyrighted, Anupam Mishra ji never made any money out of it. That was never the intention. The intention was to actually reach out to communities and people and tell them the importance of the ponds, both for social reasons as well as for ecological reasons. Even more interestingly, he saw the decline of the ponds and he linked it with the use of borewells and electrification. So, this is something which I would say as we read various textbooks and various papers and journals which are produced in the West, I think here is something that should help us start our understanding and realization of the importance of ponds. So I did make a bit of a comparison between uh, the ancient structures and the modern infrastructures. I'm not going into the details of it, but suffice to say that most of our ancient structures were designed to hold the local rainfall. And most of our modern infrastructure is designed to go beyond, either to collect the fossil waters from underground or to tap into the waters that are at a distance. So that's the fundamental difference that we are talking about. And this difference has actually led to a neglect of the inherent resilience building capacity. So if we have 80% of the rain concentrated in 3 to 4 months of a year, and that too may be about 50 to 60 days, depending on the location in Eastern India, Western, Southern, or Northern. So what happens is that there's a huge amount of water that is available to us in a concentrated manner. And the only way to hold this water is to create storage structures, which is exactly what we had been doing through millennia. And we have survived through the millennia because we've had ponds everywhere. almost every household in Eastern India has a pond. And that's something, and this is a quotation by Anupam Mishraji: every problem faced by the farmer and by society has a solution in ponds. So if we look at Vadodara here, I have seen, I've given a picture of the Bauli in Vadodara, so which is very typical to many other Baulis you can see in Western India and Northern India. In Orissa, uh, in order to preserve the purity of a tank or a pond, you would see that often there would be a temple inside the pond itself. So there were ponds designated for drinking water, for livestock use, for bathing purposes, etc. And these were not only designated and maintained, they were also assigned the level of purity by these visible emblems and signs, which is a pond and a temple inside. Go down south, you will see not only down south, everywhere in India, every temple has ponds attached to it. So ponds are essentially related to the purity, where you take a holy dip, or and all of these are associated with us simply because we understand or understood the importance of ponds. Unfortunately, it is also cracking. So I think the third important thing is to find creative ways to reconnect with these ponds. So looking at these pictures, I'm not asking you to get back to these, but try and think about what are the different ways. How can we really think of connecting with the pond systems? Is it through a butterfly? Is it through odonites? Is it through the sheer beauty, clicking pictures? I don't know. Whatever you think will work in order to get the attention of people towards ponds, I think we should find some creative ways to do it. A great example of a government policy and program, which is something that would be the obvious question: has government done anything about it? Yes, government has. And one of the very wonderful example is Telangana. When it was created, it came up with the Mission Kakatiya. And the Mission Kakatiya was all about restoring ponds. And they restored nearly 50,000 ponds, investing more than 5,000 crores, irrigating more than 15 lakh acres. And that is something which could even be seen from the satellite images. Now, coming to the satellite, I would also like to mention that the satellites have played a really negative role when it comes to ponds, because the images that we get from satellite has a certain resolution, which means that we cannot see the small ponds, and the ponds only beyond a certain size is visible. And these are then used to assess the kind of surface water bodies that we have in India, and which moves into the policy prescription. So if we look at the national efforts for pond restoration, uh, you will have the PM Krishi Sinchai Yojana as well as the NREGS programs, which allow you to do certain things with the local water bodies. But if you are looking at the Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of 2017, or the increasing focus on nature-based solutions, unfortunately, these are driven mostly by the satellite images produced by the uh, remote sensing application centers of India, which do not have the capacity of looking at the very small pond systems. And in the absence of that, what is happening is the focus is increasingly shifting towards the larger water bodies. And with that shift in the focus on the larger water bodies, we are moving towards managing the large water bodies, which are essentially in urban areas or uh, protected as a in a different ways. It has less connect with communities and more connect with uh, government systems, with planners, with the corporate environment, and all of that. So I think that's the disconnect that is happening, and we need to sort of bridge this. So this is thank you very much, and I would like to end by saying that very soon uh, a book is coming out called The Living Waters, which will also have a chapter of mine on wetland conservation. And this is going to talk about the different types of water systems and their conservation efforts. Uh, this is being produced by the Almora Literary Festival and published by the Motilal Banarsidass Publishing House, a very old publishing house in India. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking us to the whole journey of pond conservation and the importance it is holds. And I would like to first of all congratulate you for the new chapter coming into the book. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and perspective for us. Now I open the platform for Q&A. Everyone can ask the questions to Dr. Somnath with respect to any doubts you are having for today's webinar as well as any other doubts you are having, because we know there are so many postgraduate students who joined us for today's webinar. So if you have any doubts, please ask the question.
इसके लिए बहुत बढ़िया हो गया है।
May I ask one question, Somnath sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm often confused by a lot of differences in the, we can say, word game. Suppose in Gujarati or in Hindi, a water body called talab is called lake in English. So, and there is no, in my opinion, is there any criteria? Are there any criteria based on which we can say, okay, this is a pond and this is a lake? Sorry, this is a very basic question, but I want to ask you, the people like you who have worked throughout life on wetlands. So I have done my 2 PhDs on wetlands only, but still I'm quite confused. So why there is so ambiguity in the use of the terms like, lakes, sarovar, talab, that is on one hand, and technically seeing where, what can we, distinguish as a pond and what is lake. I have read something in the books that lakes are large water body and they affect the climate, whereas ponds are small and they are affected by the climate and all that thing. But do you agree that there is a lot of ambiguity in these terms, technically as well as in socio-economic sense? Thank you.
I think it's an excellent question, Ketan bhai, because what we read are essentially those which are provided to us by scientists and others who are located outside of India. And if you think in terms of, I'll just give you a small example of what is the definition of a wetland, for instance. And the moment you get into the definition of a wetland, as far as the Ramsar Convention is concerned, you hit issues like places of bogs, fens, peatlands. And I'll just ask a simple question. Go down to anybody and ask them, do you know what is a bog? Do you know what is a fen? Have you seen one in your lifetime anywhere in India, a bog or a fen or a marshland, or what is it, a peatland? You would really have to search the nation really to figure out where there is one peatland in this country. And yet, these are some of the things that are given us it has actually detached people from their own environmental understanding. And that's the most unfortunate part. And I think it is upon you and me to really come out with definitions of these kind, and definitions which really talk to the people, talk to the communities, which is what I think the reason I chose to highlight uh, Anupam Mishra ji is because of this, that if you think of a talab or a sarovar or a tal or any such thing which is there in the Western India, you come to Eastern India, it is called pokhar, it is called a mon, a chor, a beel, a talaya, all kinds of things. And these are the words which has to come into our lexicon. And there are differences. And who amongst us have really taken the time and effort to understand what these differences mean? Why is a beel uh, something different from a pokhar, for instance? Even in Eastern India, if I ask somebody, they are not able to say. So I think, and even if you go down south, there is a whole bunch of people who would give you all different kinds of names, which even I have not heard many of these names. So the point is that you are unable to connect your own environment with your own mother tongue, with your own lexicon. And the problem lies in the fact of our education. Our PhDs have really inhibited us from going down and talking to a person and explaining to him or her the importance of a backyard pond, whatever name it might be. So I think this is a very important and critical thing, and I call upon all my colleagues and well wishing fraternity to really give some thought to this as to how we can indigenize our own knowledge system, how we can take pride in the names that we have in any Indian language, in any corner of India, and develop an understanding about this. So if we do a PhD, let's do a PhD on Sarovar or a Tal. And let's not say that we are doing something on a lake or a pond, because the artificial classifications are really, to my mind, a big hurdle in the way we connect.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Somnath sir.
So we have a question from Kiran, and he's saying, "I'm Mr. Kiran from Andhra Pradesh. Can you suggest some books on regional water bodies history, especially with respect to Telugu state, and also to avail English version of Anupam Mishraji book?"
Yeah, it's all available on Amazon itself. So I think the English version is also available. It's translated into many regional languages as well. So you should definitely take a look at that. Uh, Telangana and Andhra, as you rightly said, I mean there is a huge amount of work that is available, but I have not read much. I think the Kakatiya traditions are very rich in terms of working with their own indigenous water systems. And again, if you just do these days, information is quite easily available. Uh, and if I come across something interesting, I would certainly share, and I would urge you to share if there is any interesting thing that you find. But of course, if things are in Telugu, I won't be able to read. And that's again a difficulty that we Indians face. The regional languages sort of tend to exclude each other in some ways. And therefore, we have to willy nilly come and use the English language. But we have to be creative about it. And we have to understand how to best do it.
Anyone else have a question? They can ask in the chat box or directly to Somnath sir. Okay, yeah, Deepa ma'am has a question.
Hello, Somitra. It was good. Sir, I wanted to know how about the Makhana board? Now, since Bihar has constituted Makhana board, how do you think it will help in conservation of the ponds?
Now, this is exactly my fear, as I was mentioning, that the moment you uh, focus on the production of a particular commodity, be it makhana or be it a particular kind of carp, it moves into the realm of aquaculture or into the realm of agriculture. And the moment it happens, it becomes a production system and not necessarily remain a protection system. So if it converts into a production system, there is going to be the stakeholders are going to change. So it is more likely that some of the uh, it is going to change in favor of the male communities, in favor of certain uh, caste communities, in favor of certain businesses, in favor of certain people who are able to invest. So, in a way, it is going to transform its original situation. Now, to some extent, that might be fine if there is also an amount of social protection available simultaneously to some of these people. Uh, and if they have been taken on board and their voices are also being heard and they are integrated in the system, so it works. But otherwise, if it is not done, there are real risks of losing out. And that I think is a complex situation. So one has to really see how it emerges, how it evolves.
Thank you.
SN Tyagiji, you have written, can you give me 3 to 4 minutes? You want to ask some question? Sir, am I audible, SN Tyagi, sir? If not, sir, you can please raise your hand and we can come back to your question again. Meanwhile, Ketan sir has asked, nowadays we come across pond deepening activities in village in Gujarat. I often feel that this activity is not eco-friendly.
Again, there is no positive or negative answer to this. Yes, Ketan bhai, tell me.
Yeah, means what I feel that though our culture is so ancient and all those things, and you, as you have rightly said, ponds have been in in our culture since so many years. Still, I sadly feel that people have just, they are treating ponds as commodities. They don't take the holistic value of a pond or any other water body, from ecological as well as socio economic angle. They are always interested in, consumption of one or the other resources of a pond, from a pond. So how that first of all, is that question from me is right or not? And secondly, if it is right, how can we, change that trend, that तालाब देखा नहीं कि उसको deepen करने लगो, without considering that thousands of migratory ducks come during the winters and they are mostly surface feeding ducks. They may not be liking that, deepened water bodies. So that kind of awareness I don't see in the villages when I go for, birding or for nature viewing in the village areas. So I feel it is very, very, very unfortunate that on one hand our culture is so wise and so, ancient, but still I don't think that is reflected in our villages nowadays.
I think what you're mentioning is very right. Uh, if you are, so think about it that the moment you come up with a program for deepening of ponds, uh, the local people have lost control. It is a program that is coming from outside, and therefore it has to be done uniformly, whether or not it makes sense in the local context. Now, in the local context, people have utilized the sediments periodically. Before the monsoons, they would do the sanskar of the ponds and they would take up some amount of silt and put it on land because that's a very wonderful, fertile land to put on the farm field. So certain amount of doing things which is in tandem with their needs and requirements, and that's where it had been in equilibrium. But if you do it across the board throughout the area, it's only about deepening the ponds and deepening it indiscriminately. So, and creating areas without any shallow areas in the ecotone region, which, as you rightly said, are wonderful bird habitats. So, if you do some of these things, then it's a problem. And I think the local communities knew exactly how much to do, where to do, why to do, and those are the questions that they would do it if they were in control. Now, therefore, if you lose control and if that control goes on to an external agency or if there's money coming in from outside in the name of a program or a project, and which is forcing people to shift their behaviors, I think, how do you look at it? Is that something which is a civilizational issue or which is essentially just um, a development issue?
I would say that it is a non-holistic development issue.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And so it is so sad that people are using the edges of the ponds just for defecation every morning. So what does that reflect? That all this these kinds of big projects and all those things, they are eroding the consciousness of local people. That is what I feel. Everything, people are looking to the government and for towards big projects and everything. So as far as, if I am consider myself as an ecologist, it is my duty to create sensitization among communities towards not only ponds but many other aspects of nature.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's the question of use and abuse. And if your use reduces, then obviously the abuse will increase. Uh, and some of these things which has wider implications, wider uh, opportunities, those are the things which are instantly lost in that sense. So yeah. Okay, we can have a conversation around that, but there's an interesting question here from Srikara, which talks about, could you please say a little more about what CSR-based NGOs should learn, how they should shape their processes for pond rejuvenation? I think it's a wonderful question and it's a wonderful opportunity, uh, simply because there are two or three things involved. One is the community engagement and bringing back the community pride and the engagement around a commonly owned resource, even if it is a small pond, is fantastic, fabulous. Uh, so if you do a community-based program which has a pond at its center, it's a fantastic initiative, number one. Number two, if you begin with connecting the children and the youth of that community to the biodiversity and the water management and use it as an educational initiative there and try and understand and link it up not only with uh, the type of understanding they're developing through the formal education, but also from their from their families, maybe the elder people of their families, their dadima, nanima kind of things, and how they have seen these ponds and write small essays and try to figure out how they would like to see that pond come up again. So I think there's a fantastic way of connecting the families, connecting the knowledge systems, bringing back that, rejuvenating the tanks along with the rejuvenation of the knowledge system. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for organizations like CSR based NGOs, because the companies would also like to see some visibility, and nothing like a village pond which can give you a very good visibility on this aspect. So yeah, I think that is a, and very importantly, uh, if you take a cluster of villages, you can show even multiplier benefits. So the type of benefits that I was talking about of the river rejuvenation, for instance. So none of these ponds are remain in isolation. They are connected through the aquifers. They're connected with the surface reservoir, surface water systems. So if a cluster of villages are adopted and taken up and uh, improved, I think you're improving the entire waterscape of that area and nothing like that. So that will have provide you much greater visibility again.
Sir, I would like to ask one question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do the Wetland Act of 2017, does it consider small man-made ponds into consideration for protection?
So when India started getting into the Ramsar Convention, if you look at it now, we have more than 90 Ramsar sites in the country, but we started with two. The first one was, and the first two, one was the Chilka Lake, and the second one was the Kevladev Ghana Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. So the the Kevladev Ghana Bharatpur Sanctuary was actually a man-made wetland. So it was a, and again, in the next tranche, we included another six, including Harike. So these are some of the wetlands which were essentially reservoirs, man made reservoirs. So you dam a certain river and you create a water body, and over a period of time, these water bodies become important sites or habitats for wildlife. And once it sort of naturalizes. I'm not a great fan of these systems to be actually protected, but because I think that at some point the government must simply think that, okay, it is not necessary, you can remove the dam and do something else with it. So there goes. So, but I think as long as it lasts, there is some value in it. So, and that is what has given it the lease of life to sort of develop it into a water body. I give you another example. In there's a wetland which is very close to Delhi, and this again. Uh, Somebody asked me whether the in the city levels we can do something about these ponds and lakes. It depends. It depends on three factors. One is primarily the hydrology, and you have to understand whether the hydrology is natural or man-made. Essentially, what Sonia is asking. So, if it is man-made, how much can you really how much can you really think of protecting that regime? For instance, the water body that I'm talking about in Greater Noida is a protected area. Birds are there. It's called Surajpur Bird Sanctuary. But the moment I saw it, I was looking into the hydrology. It's basically uh, the seepage of water from the canal system. So there's a canal going nearby, and the seepage is actually helping this wetland sustain this wetland. Now, if you want to conserve this wetland, and tomorrow the irrigation department says, "Hey, I want to improve my canal system," so there goes your wetland. So how do you really work on it? And this was a question that I posed to the WWF person there, who was actually developing the entire place as a birding site, and he had no answer. So, but basically that is the issue. So, unless we understand, and that's the first step, we have to understand its hydrological connects, what it means to the larger landscape, what it means to the larger, I would say, waterscape, because India is a waterscape in that sense. So, unless we understand that, we cannot take the next step, which is the ecosystem, the ecology. And once the hydrology and the ecology works together, then the third thing comes in is in terms of the sociology of it. So how people are connected with it. So we have to think in these three in sequence: hydrology, ecology, and sociology.
Thank you so much, sir. And I also wanted to inquire about one more question. You said about the Telangana, it was having the Kakite mission, like recently they started all this thing. So how, like with all the bore wells coming in, all the pipe water coming in, are the farmers favoring this pond rejuvenation? This is just out of curiosity I am asking. Or they are still preferring the old way of irrigation?
See, it's again very interesting that you have to think in terms of there's a price to pay for pulling out underground water, right? And the price is in the form of electricity bills. So if the government provides you with that electricity bill, then for you, essentially, it becomes a free supply. And then it does not make sense for you to have any pond system. You can as well have whatever you want because the rest of the thing is only the instrument that you want to pull out your water with. So it's again linked very clearly with the type of policies and programs, and particularly with the borewells and the electricity billing policies. So that's how we normally change the incentive structures, not always to the best interest of either the people in the vicinity or people throughout the country.
I agree. I feel like now listening, are these the policy gaps we need to address in the future?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So we have a question from Achal Chaudhary. Thank you, sir. I'm Achal from Dehradun, Uttarakhand, pursuing BSc Biology at Azim Premji University, Bhopal. And we have a question: how we can protect and conserve the ponds ecosystem in cities?
Yeah, I think in if you look at cities, the ponds have a very different role. So in a city, the question is again that why are we losing out much of the ponds in anywhere? We are losing it because it is not valued. And why is it not valued? Because land has value and water does not have that value. So, and particularly in the city area, land is valued number of times more than what is its value in the rural area. So there is every incentive for everybody to actually close a pond, convert it into a real estate, as they call it, and build a building. So that is one of the major difficulties of protecting small ponds within that has come within the urban areas now. Now, there are some efforts going on to sort of protect these, but that's essentially fighting against very powerful uh, real estate lobbies, very powerful money people, and it's very difficult to really convince anybody. And also, the fact is that the people who actually benefited from these, they're also not that interested. So, you need very good governance to actually protect the lungs and the kidneys of the city. Ask people living in Bangalore how they're dealing with this. So, they will give you a very good example of how difficult it is. Right? Much of the real estate is within the lake systems in Bangalore. So, uh,
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. And SN Tyagiji is, raised his hand. Sir, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hello,
hello,
Dr. Somnath ji.
hello, hello,
Hello.
हेलो डॉक्टर सोनिया मैं बात कर रहा हूँ आप सुन पा रहे हैं
Sir, you are audible. आप audible हैं.
अच्छा अच्छा
हम सुन पा रहे
अच्छा
हैं आपको.
ऑडिबल है ठीक है डॉक्टर बंदोपाध्याय नमस्कार नमस्कार सर
नमस्ते
नमस्कार
नमस्ते
देखिए मैं दो तीन पॉइंट आपके ध्यान में ला रहा हूँ जो इम्पोर्टेंट हैं एक्चुअली देखिए बड़ौदा शहर में कई तालाब हैं बड़े बड़े हैं हरणी का तालाब है गोत्री का तालाब है आप जहां भी देखेंगे जिस भी तालाब को देखेंगे हमारे जो सिटी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है जो हमारे म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर हैं डिप्टी कमिश्नर्स हैं जो गार्डन के सुपरिटेंडेंट हैं उन्होंने क्या किया है सभी पॉन्ड्स के जो स्लोप हैं सबको पक्का कर दिया है तो पॉन्ड सरवाइव कैसे करेगा पॉन्ड क्या है एक्चुअली व्हाट इज पॉन्ड एंड हाउ इट सर्वाइव्स ऑन इट्स ओन एक्चुअली ये जो सिंपल ज्ञान है ये उन इंजीनियर्स को नहीं मालूम है और मालूम है तो वो पत्थर लगाने पे ही लगे हुए हैं चारों तरफ। आप जहां देखो वहां उसका सौंदर्यीकरण हो रहा है। मैं यूपी का बताऊं आपको, ये तो रही सिटी की बात, वहां तो हो ही रहा है। और इनको 75 ईयर्स जो हुए हैं ना हमारे, मतलब अमृत तालाब के नाम पे इनको किया जा रहा है। तो ये समझाने की बहुत जरूरत है। एटलीस्ट शहरों में जो हमारे एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स हैं, करोड़ों रुपया लग रहा है। ये गोत्री के तालाब के सौंदर्यकरण पे करोड़ों रुपया खर्च हुआ है। क्या वो तालाब जो है खाली वाटर बॉडी है हमारे लिए? क्या वो उससे आगे जाके कुछ भी नहीं है क्या तालाब? तो हमारे बंदोपाध्याय साहब, हमारे जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स हैं, वो पॉन्ड को समझ ही नहीं रहे हैं कि पॉन्ड है क्या।
ये बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स इशू आपने बात किया छेड़ा है। एक तरह से तो बहुत सिंपल है, इकोलॉजिकली इट्स वेरी सिंपल टू अंडरस्टैंड, लेकिन ये कॉम्प्लेक्स इसलिए है कि डिसीजन मेकिंग, एज आई वाज सेइंग, इज अगेन डिवॉइड ऑफ द कम्युनिटीज एंड द अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द इकोसिस्टम्स। और डिसीजन मेकिंग कहीं और हो रही है। उनके ऊपर प्रेशर जो है वो है कि इतना पैसा है आपको पास, खर्च करो। तो देर इज अ प्रेशर ऑन देम। सो वो प्रेशर काम करता है, और इंजीनियर्स यही कहते हैं कि ठीक है, आप इसको बांध लगा दो चारों तरफ से। ऑब्वियसली दे आल्सो नो दैट द pond will die off in a few in due course। तब जाके हम अंदर में कुछ एरेटर्स लगा देंगे। सो एक फुवारा लगा देंगे, we'll do some more beautification, we'll put in some more money। It's basically going down the pathway of management। सो मैनेजमेंट पाथवे पे एक बार हम चल पड़ते हैं तो वहां पे तो और कोई वापस आने की जरूरत नहीं है, हो ही नहीं सकती है। सो दैट्स द क्वेश्चन कि आर वी रियली, जब हम बात करते हैं नेचर बेस्ड सॉल्यूशंस की, जब हम बात करते हैं टू वर्क विथ नेचर एंड नॉट अगेंस्ट इट, देन इट डज नॉट रिक्वायर टू मच मनी, इट रिक्वायर्स टू मच नॉलेज। और वो नॉलेज को हम साइडलाइन कर देते हैं, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट रियली वैल्यूएबल थिंग। और इसके लिए क्या करना पड़ता है, वी हैव टू देन थिंक इन टर्म्स ऑफ, कोई भी तालाब आप देख ले, कोई भी पॉन्ड्स आप देख ले, उसमें एक इनलेट होगी, एक आउटलेट होगी। दिस अ सिंपल थिंग। उसकी कनेक्टिविटीज होगी, जो अंडरग्राउंड कनेक्टिविटीज होंगी, एक्विफर कनेक्शंस होंगे। उसके साथ में द द इकोटोन रीजन जिसे कहते हैं, जहां पे लैंड एंड वाटर की इंटरेक्शंस होती है, वहां पे बायोडाइवर्सिटी मैक्सिमाइज होगी। एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स विल डिटरमिन द क्वालिटी क्वांटिटी ऑफ द वाटर सिस्टम्स। वो जैसा भी है वो इकोसिस्टम की कैरेक्टरिस्टिक बनेगी फिर। नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज, इसको अगर हम पूरा कॉन्क्रिटाइज करते हैं, देन इट इज एज गुड एज द बकेट इन माय हाउस। तो उस पर तो कोई नेचुरल सिस्टम काम ही नहीं कर पाएगा। And under such conditions, then what it needs is regular scrubbing and cleaning, and which is what the management is about: scrubbing, cleaning, aerating, doing all kinds of things, and continues to do that। तो उसमें से शायद आप एक एक्वेरियम बना सकते हो। So maybe you can put some fishes and give some food and give some oxygen to keep it alive, but that is not a natural ecosystem, जिसकी सारी जो फाउंडेशंस है वो सब खत्म करने के बाद बचता क्या है। So I remember what you are saying. We have seen it earlier when the Sursagar के जो deepening के काम चल रही थी, and I was there in Baroda at that time, and the municipal commissioner in that time, we were discussing about the Sursagar, and I told them that well, in Sursagar is in such a situation, वहाँ पे आप क्या कर सकते हो, सारी चीजें तो खत्म हो ही चुका है। So he then said that maybe we can use it differently, and maybe for many of these other lakes like you mentioned, Harni, Gotri, which are in the periphery of the city, जहाँ पे connectivities अभी भी पूरी तरह lose नहीं हुआ है, वहाँ पे perhaps we can do something। The problem is कि from a management perspective we need sharp boundaries। तो अगर आप यहाँ पे भी जो ponds आप देखेंगे, हरनी हो या गोत्री में भी हो, they are putting up barbed wire fencing। So in order to sort of ensure that these are the limits of the water systems, and इसके अंदर का मैनेजमेंट कुछ और है, बाहर का मैनेजमेंट कुछ और है। नाउ इन नेचर देयर इज नो सच डिविजन्स। सो नेचर में कोई शार्प डिवीजन लाइंस तो बनती नहीं है। सो देयर इज ऑलवेज अ काइंड ऑफ अ ग्रेडियंट of hydrology, a gradient of a physical gradient, even gradient of every kinds। And these gradients support the maximum amount of biodiversity. So वो समझना भी बहुत important है. So how do we deal with gradients is one of the critical issues emerging in aquatic sciences. और अभी जाके जैसे हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा रिवर्स की रिजुविनेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, we are getting into the whole area of riparian restoration, and riparian systems are nothing but these kind of transitional systems जहाँ पे these gradients are very important. How do we maintain these gradients? How do we understand these gradients? And how do we work with these gradients? तो वहाँ क्या सिंपल इंटरवेंशन करना जरूरी है, या वी एक्चुअली थिंक इन टर्म्स ऑफ वर्किंग विथ द ग्रेडियंट इन सम मैनर, which is essentially a natural system, or which is essentially a ecological intervention, not necessarily an engineering intervention.
सर हम कुछ ऐसे सॉल्यूशन निकाल के लाएं, कुछ हम मॉडल अगर गवर्नमेंट को प्रपोज करें तो वो ज्यादा कारगर होगा. हमारे पास कोई मॉडल नहीं है, उनके पास तो मॉडल है, दे हैव द मॉडल. ये ग्रेडियंट जो है उस पे तो डॉक्टर साहब बुलडोजर चल रहा है, सो दे हैव देयर ओन मॉडल. हमारे पास कोई मॉडल नहीं है, क्या हम उनको कभी मॉडल दे सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल, इसीलिए मैं पहले भी कह रहा था कि ये जो CSR बेस्ड काम की बात किया गया है, आई थिंक दैट इज परहैप्स द एन एंट्री पॉइंट इन ऑर्डर टू डेवलप सम ऑफ दीज मॉडल्स. वो एक इंडिविजुअल लेक पे तो काम करना थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट होगा, बिकॉज एज आई एम सेइंग नेचर इज ऑलवेज इंटरकनेक्टेड, एंड ये इंटरकनेक्शंस देखना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है. सो कैन वी पिक अप एन एरिया वेयर देयर आर सम ऑफ दीज ponds and water bodies in a situation जहाँ पे हम ये interconnections को देखते हुए we can develop some छोटे छोटे models बनाते हैं, which starts with the social side of it, works through the ecological side, and actually has an impact on the hydrology. So we have to understand it the other way around.
Okay, small watershed कोई लेना पड़ेगा, कोई small watershed लेना पड़ेगा.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
जी, thank you sir, thank you.
Most welcome.
Sir, on that note, I would like to ask, like, जैसे model की बात की गई है, like Vantara is a huge model and it is like greatly talked, and I guess it is, drawing all the attention. So do you think we shall replicate very small models from the Vantara, that's by Reliance, on our small local bodies? Because small local bodies, we have to fight a lot. On the contrary, Vantara is, drawing all the attention and the CSR as well as the praises. So how to balance this thing?
No, I think Vantara is actually not connected with people. If it is actually converting citizens into consumers. So we don't want that. We want people to be connected. So that's a very fundamental difference. So if that is a difference, then we have to work with the communities, with the people, and we cannot really exclude them. It has to be an inclusive approach. So what Tyagi Saab was mentioning, if we can think about taking up a small watershed and identifying that these are the different water bodies in that area, and there is some institutional or even social connect with the water systems in that area, then can we go step by step? Can we identify the hydrological situation and what are the breakages that we can see? So there must be some places where the hydrological situation is broken. So maybe this was a recharge zone which has been paved up. Maybe there has been some area where the recharge may not be happening to the extent that it should, or maybe the surface connectivity has been lost in some places. So what all can be recovered, restored? And restoration is not easy, not simple. It will involve complicated things, including maybe some people have to relocate, which is not a good idea and not a very easy thing to do. So we have to innovate on all of those issues. So how do we bypass some of these systems? Because we cannot really do what US did. So US first concretized the entire floodplain of Mississippi and then spent billions of dollars to sort of reclaim it. So in India, that is not possible. If you build a house, you cannot go and say that, okay, tomorrow the house should be broken. So, of course, in some places it's happening. So, but if you run a bulldozer, as I was saying, so if you run a bulldozer, it has serious repercussions in India. So, it's not a first option. So you do it only as a last option. So how can we think of other options which can take into account the current situation and work around it? So it may not be 100% restoration. It could be a 80%, 50% restoration, which is also fine. Uh, I think let's make a beginning somewhere, and let's not create enemies. Let's create friends. That's the whole idea.
Absolutely, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. So we have a question from children. Nowadays, invasive or exotic fishes have entered in many water bodies. What can be the solution? And before you answer that, I just like to, read the compliment which Joy Chaudhary has given. Thank you, Dr. Somnath. I have changed perspective on ponds listening to you today.
Thank you so much. So, uh, I think if you are talking about exotics, it's just like the Gandavaval is a classic example in the terrestrial system. We are talking about a similar exotic species of fishes. And wherever the exotic species comes in, it's basically when the ecological strength of a particular area gets weaker. So in a transforming system where the native plants or animals are unable to survive, these are the conditions in which the exotic species move in. So I think you don't have to worry too much about the exotic fishes. If you are able to change the habitat, then I think slowly uh, this problem will also get solved. So yeah, it's a question of how good is the habitat. That's all.
So we have a question from Anil. Anil, please go ahead.
हेलो सर, गुड इवनिंग। दिस इज
Good
अनिल
evening.
फ्रॉम एफईएस। सर, जो एक सॉल्यूशन या फिर एक मॉडल की जो बात हो रही थी, सो मैं राजस्थान पे मैं काफी काम किया हूँ और डेजर्ट वाले एरिया में मैंने एक सिस्टम देखा है कि वो लोग आज भी पूरे साल के पानी के लिए, उनका चाहे पीने का हो या डेली यूज का हो, उसके लिए आज भी वो तालाबों पर निर्भर हैं। और स्पेशली उनका जो कैचमेंट एरिया होता है, उस कैचमेंट एरिया में ओपन डेफिकेशन तो बहुत दूर की बात है, कुछ भी छोटी मोटी चीज भी नहीं कर सकते, बहुत रिजिडली उस चीज को फॉलो करते हैं। तो आई थिंक हमें कहीं और से कहीं सॉल्यूशन की जरूरत नहीं, शायद हमारे जो एग्जिस्टिंग जो सिस्टम है, ट्रेडिशनल जो सिस्टम है इन विलेज पॉन्ड को मैनेज करने की, शायद वही कहीं सॉल्यूशन है।
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं आप। ये तो देखिए, ये टूट क्यों रहा है? बिकॉज द न्यूअर जनरेशन इज नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन कंटिन्यूइंग विद दिस. सो in a sense, the newer generation is looking outside their village, outside their society, and is now bahar ki taraf dekh rahe hain. That's number one pressure. Number two pressure is the government is coming in and saying that you should not have these. You will give you pipe supplies inside your house. You will have a toilet inside your house. So all of these things are the drivers against the traditional system. Now, given these kind of a complexity, अ, इसमें सिर्फ एक ही काम हो सकती है कि लोगों को बताओ भाई ये सिचुएशन है, अब आपके ऊपर निर्भर करता है कि आप क्या करना चाहते हो. So if they accept it, that yes, it is important in their way of looking at preserving some of these issues, going ahead with following some of the traditional systems, and it's well and good. अगर नहीं करना चाहते हैं, then it is going to be a really difficult thing to restore. सो आप बाहर से कितना कर सकते हो, ये डिपेंड करेगा कि अंदर से कितना इसकी चाह बनी है. बट आई थिंक इट्स ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू सॉर्ट ऑफ कम अप विद दिस लार्जर इशू कि हमारे कंट्री की जो सर्वाइवल है, ये सर्वाइवल ओवरऑल टिकी हुई है ऑन द डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड स्टोरेज ऑफ रेन वाटर. as I was saying, throughout the country, the decentralized storage of rainwater is so critical. And it is not so much about the extraction of water from the lower aquifers. The upper aquifers, जो recharge होती है through these ponds and through these smaller surface storage systems, they are critical for reviving or restoring the river systems as well. So I think kahin na kahin we could perhaps, and this is something that Jayendra could help us understand a little better, uh, maybe the upper aquifer systems and the lower aquifer systems need to be looked at slightly differently, particularly in alluvial areas. I'm not talking about the hard rock areas. In the alluvial areas, jahan pe, how to recharge the lower aquifers is a separate matter, but at least the upper aquifers can be recharged through these systems.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please. Waiting.
So Vadodara is facing a typical problem because the upper aquifers, which are unconfined aquifers, are not being used because a lot of pipelines go, sewage lines go, so they stop using this upper aquifers. So now it is borewells and tube wells are in lower aquifers. So rainwater which recharges is of no use in upper aquifer in Vadodara city. This is I'm talking about city area. The ponds are recharging everything. Now, particularly the western part of Vadodara, which is Gotri and all this thing, the in monsoon the aquifer connectivity increases. All the like it is unconfined aquifers are patchy aquifers, but when the water level comes to the shallow depth, then so many patchy aquifers get interconnected, and this being a slightly sandy, these aquifers get a good flow. Now we have a lot of basements in western parts of Vadodara, and even if it's low rainfall, so many groundwater ooze out from those basements, and they constantly take out water from those basements for say 10 days, 15 days. So this is a problem when we are not using aquifers. uh, I was asked a question by a press reporter. So why this basement water is coming out in particular western part of the Vadodara city? I said this is the case. This construction technique is not applicable in western parts of Vadodara basement, particularly when the groundwater get connected to the upper reaches. So yes, upper aquifers are very important, particularly villages. They are, the tube wells or the small wells, bore wells, which are associated with ponds. The ponds are used in monsoon for so many things, but post monsoon, particularly the bore wells which are associated with this ponds, the tube wells, are being used as freshwater supply for the villages. So this is how these ponds are very important in villages. They are getting connected with the shelly aquifers, which are again used by the through the whales.
Very good point. Yep.
Any other question as we are reaching 5:30? Anyone else would like to ask any further question to Dr. Somnath? Sir, one last question from my end.
Yes.
Okay, this was a delightful talk to be part of. Tikara is saying thank you. Any childhood or field work memory related to ponds which has shaped your current ecological philosophy?
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. I think going into some of these villages, when I was young, I would have certainly moved into. I used to travel I grew up in Bihar, in Dhanbad, which was a mining area. And the ponds in that area were essentially the quarries which got filled up with water. So they were hardly the kind of ponds that you see elsewhere. And therefore, we were not allowed to even take a swim there. So when we went to West Bengal over during vacations and all, this is the time when we saw the how uh, everywhere it's a dotted with ponds everywhere, and each of these ponds uh, has a story of its own. Each of these ponds have an utility, and you can access some of these in some ways So some are out of bounds. Somewhere you can go and take a dip with friends, families, whatever you. So I think the relationship with water systems overall in the Indian civilizational systems is very different. So as I was showing about the Chhat Puja, we actually are a society that love to take a dip in the water. So we actually go for a swim, we take a dip, we bathe ourselves, which is very different from the Western societies, where the Western societies, they are very happy to just take a look at the river systems. They take a look at the water systems. They are not necessarily, it's too freezing cold. They don't want to get into it, right? So for them, the connect is very different. It's a visual connect. So for us, it's a very tactile connect. So we have to go and touch it. So even when you go down to the Ganga River, you sprinkle some water even if you don't enter into the river. So it has to be a touch. It has to be a sprinkle. And that is something which sort of is the civilizational dimension, which I think in many ways we are losing out. Uh, how do we bring back that civilizational connect? I think is a fundamental dimension of understanding. And the moment you do that, when you touch that water, when you are able to drink it, I think that's a far cry. But at least if you can bathe in it, I think that itself would be a very great step in pushing people in a right direction. But I think I'll leave it at that because that's a civilizational dimension, and which is where I think we really need to bring back that civilizational connect in order to make all the other connects, the social, ecological, hydrological connects work. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this beautiful memory. And we have a question from Pranjay. Sir, can you please shed some light on algal blooms in such small water bodies, which is sometimes ignored or in the shadow due to other more limelight anthropogenic activities?
Yeah, the algal blooms are essentially because of nutrient enrichment. So, and the nutrient enrichment is happening because of all kinds of things that are going in, the organic material that are going in. So, yeah, I mean, what should I talk about? Algal blooms are not necessarily, it's an indication of what is happening. And those indications, I think, need to be taken into account when you decide on what to do with a kind of how to protect, how to improve. So even when we were just discussing about our memories of childhood relations with ponds. So many of these ponds had their variety of uses, and you have not only algal bloom, you see various kinds of macrophytes, so larger plants. Either they are submerged, or they are floating on the surface, or they are emergent from the water systems. So, and these are also habitats for uh, insects, birds, uh, reptilia, all kinds of things, amphibians. So, a variety of things. And so, if you sit down in the evening next to a pond, you can hear a variety of sounds, which these days nobody can hear really, particularly in urban areas or peri urban areas. So, yes, these are all indicative of the type of a pond it is and the nature of interactions that human beings are having with these ponds. So I would look at it from that angle, try to understand the nature of the interaction that is going on, and not see any of these as a problem per se, but these are the fallouts of the nature of interactions that's happening.
Pranjay, I guess you got your answer. And Anil ji has given a comment. Recently, Anil, Satpati Vityagi Sahab were wandering in a park in Minto Park area in Calcutta. They were born inside the park. It was same as you mentioned in all these lectures, sir. It was a great discussion. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Anil ji, you have any other question?
No. Sorry. No.
Any further
Somnath.
questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Tell me.
Hello. Don't you think that this fast life is a big hindrance of those traditional connect and where we have to work in schools and colleges to bring back those things? Your opinion, please.
Come again? This is the past? What did you say? I did not get it fully. Did you get, Sonia, what she said?
No, sir. We cannot. Sir, can you repeat your question?
I guess he said fast life.
Oh, fast life. Yeah, of course. That is very true. I mean, I often mention this that the working with nature. Okay, I'll just take one more minute and finish it off. Uh, the difference between working with nature and working against nature, which is the technological dimension, there is one crucial difference, and that difference is about time. So, nature takes its own time, and you can't rush it. So, if a baby takes 9 months to be born, it's the 9 months to be born. You can't rush it. So, similarly, a flower takes its own time to bloom, it will take its own time. You can't do anything about it. So, and this is where technology is always trying to sort of make it faster, better, quicker. How do we do it? With nature, that is clearly not possible. And the only way to do it is perhaps move into biotechnology. And again, that's a technology. So, uh, and that has its own fallouts. So, I think the trouble between these is essentially the speed with which we would approach our life. So, how fast we would like to move in our life is one of the critical things that we need to think about. So, including water. In water's case, we want water to slow down, but in everything else, we want to hasten our journey through everything. So, which I think, yeah, it's a important issue to think about. The timing is a very critical thing as far as natural ecosystems are concerned. Okay, that's my son.
Sir, we have more requests for future lectures from you. Like we should. I will request the organizer to invite few lectures of you on what is fawn and how it is ecology. So we will definitely, again invite Dr. Somnath for our lectures. And your son has, Cyan has, nature has already used evolution to create highly efficient system. Human engineering can only go so far without disrupting that. That's an agree. Okay, good, sir. All right, with
Millions of
that,
years.
yes. Thank you, Somnath, sir. And
Thank you.
before we proceed ahead with vote of thanks, I would just like to give two important announcements to all the people, especially the postgraduate students who are there. All right, Anchal has already also given the comment. So with your permission, I would like to share the presentation. All right. This is our, we have before, currently ICR, now Russian University is organizing ICR. That's a international conference on the resilience. This is specifically why we are telling you, because all the postgraduate students, you can apply to it, submit the abstract over here, and the papers will be published in a reputed international journal. And it's a very good experience if you are into ecological and resilience. So we highly recommend you please go through the Navratna University website, go through the themes and apply. The last date for application is 30th August 2025. And then please subscribe to our, newsletter to be the part of the GS community. You are already part by being the part of this webinar, but you can get more of the initiatives we are doing, and of course, the future opportunities which GS will be presenting. Our next webinar will be on World River Day, that is on 27th September. You all will get notification for it. And thank you so much for joining. Everyone will get the recording of it. We will upload this whole lecture on our official YouTube channel. So you can share it, you can, spread the words and join, of course. So with that, I end and I invite Dr. Deepa Gowli, our Deputy Director, to go for a vote of thanks. Dr. Somnath Bandyopadhyay.
Thank you, sir. It was very interesting topic. And it was more interesting because it was more of dialogue kind, and most people and most of the things on the ecology came out. And I would only tell one thing: the soil, water, human. This three connect is very important for a wetland or a small pond to sustain. And yes, it was, and as Tyagi sir has suggested, we would obviously like to listen more to you and your vast knowledge on the subject. And also during that this work or webinar, we could, at least I got a call from one of the CSR industrial unit, and they want to go for eco restoration of a pond. It's totally on the nature based solution. So yes, concretization is now slowly we are trying to convince the industries also, okay, at least try to move your funds towards the natural based solution. So at least we are targeting one already we are working on, another one we are trying to work on. So let's hope in near future we can see more of natural wetlands which are protected and in a natural systems. Yes, thanks a lot, and thank you for sharing your time.
Thanks, Deepa. Thanks, GES, and thanks everybody who joined in today. And if I have been able to stir some thinking amongst all of you, that would be a wonderful thing. It's my prize. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for sharing your time and energy with us. I request everyone, please open the cameras for a group photograph.
Good to see so many known faces.
Done, Sonia?
I'm just capturing the memories of today's late webinar. So just give me 1 more minute. Thank you everyone for your time and energy. And of course, I'm sure you all have benefited. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to enhance your knowledge. And special thanks to Dr. Bandyopadhyay for sharing such a beautiful journey through this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You may leave the room now. The webinar has been officially ended. I will leave as the last person. So I request everyone, please leave the room. Thanks, Ayan. I request everyone who are still into the room, so please leave the room so that the meeting can be ended and the webinar can be ended. PS Thakur, Yashoda, Snehal, Mandir, Aditya, Pallavi.